everybody. This is Dr. Lori Shemek.
And I'm Omar Cumberbatch. You're listening to This Podcast Burns Fat. Hey, Lori, how you doing today?
Hi, Omar. I'm doing fine. Yeah, just excited about our new guest today. But a little birdie tells me you have the answer to my question from last week's show.
Yes, yeah. So it was interesting. So I have someone who does my show notes for my website, and of course they listen to our show and get all like the notes together and get all the graphics to put on my website. So her name is Ariel, and she just works with a bunch of people in the industry. And one of the people that she does work with happens to be a farmer. And this farmer actually has a podcast as well. And she said that she had the answer to why your organic produce is so huge. So,
Berries in particular.
yeah. So she explains it like this. She said that,
Okay,
and this
but
is,
first we have to say that before berries, conventional berries that are not organic were very big, right? And the
mhm.
organic berries were really little. Okay, so go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So that obviously stumbled both of us. And she basically
Mm-hmm.
went on to say that it is actually a reflection of the way that that particular farmer produces their produce, right? So it's so in the example of the berries, she said that say that it is a 3 foot area. If the soil is more fertile, if the spacing between the other crops is large enough, those berries will grow to massive sizes in a organic way. So and it basically also said that say that if you envision you cramming say 4 or 5 different types of produce in that little 3 foot area, they'll be fighting for the nutrients of the soil and they'll just take
Mm-hmm.
what they can get, which means that they just end up naturally smaller.
Very
So that,
cool.
yeah, I was like, okay,
Uh, did we lose you
someone,
guys? Hang in there.
yeah.
We do have a guest today.
Yeah, it's an absolutely complete different subject of our guest today. And this one is about sleep. So everybody knows that how much sleep is important to everything that we do. And
Oh,
no
yeah.
surprise that weight loss is definitely one of the things that sleep can assist in.
Yeah, it's great. We have Dr. Angela Holliday-Bell on today, and she is a certified sleep specialist, a sleep coach, speaker, board certified physician, and she's been on Dr. Phil, ABC News, Health, and multiple media outlets. So we were really happy to have her on, so she could really improve all of our sleep and so we can optimize our health and not just our weight.
Yeah, yeah, she was awesome. So let's jump into
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Hey, Dr. Holliday Bell, how are you today?
I am well. I'm well. I'm so excited
Yay.
to be a
So
guest on the show.
happy to have you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. We all can use a little bit more sleep, maybe, or
Absolutely.
quality sleep.
Absolutely, I'm sure.
Yeah. So if you could you just kind of provide a little bit of background on your expertise in the field of medicine?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a board certified physician as well as a certified sleep specialist. I like to tell people a little bit about my journey and what kind of got
Mm-hmm.
me to this point. So I like to say I've always had a fairly deep, loving relationship with sleep. And as I went throughout my medical training in medical school, and more specifically residency, I started to suffer from insomnia. And it was pretty bad. And I just felt myself becoming a very different version of myself that I did not like. So it really started with my own quest to just fix my sleep. And so I read every book there was on sleep. I started to volunteer in my sleep clinic at my hospital and just really fell in love with sleep and understanding that it was more than just feeling rested. Like it's really necessary for optimal functioning in every facet of my life. So as I started to improve my sleep through the techniques that I had researched, I was like, I have to spread the word. I have to help other people do the same. And so it kind of just grew from there. I ended up becoming certified as a sleep specialist and then also got training in cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And I've been helping people sleep better ever since.
Oh, that's great. So why is sleep so often overlooked in the big scheme of things, especially in our society?
I think it's because of this misconception about sleep and that sleep makes you lazy or, I'll sleep when I die is one of my favorites. People feeling like sleep takes away from their ability to be productive and to hustle and grind. And it's really just the opposite, right? Like sleep allows you to be more productive and more efficient and better really in every facet of your life. So luckily, I am starting to see a little bit of a shift to people understanding, like, okay, there's more to this sleep thing. Like, maybe I should look into this. But I do think there are just some deep rooted misconceptions about what sleep does, what happens during sleep, how beneficial it is for you, and people equate it with being lazy or not being productive.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I when I was growing up, it was always like those who slept a lot were perceived as lazier. And so,
Exactly.
you'd go to work and everybody, oh, I didn't get any sleep last night, and and it was looked upon as a badge of honor, really.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. People wear it that way. And I'm like, listen, if I can I need 9 hours of sleep and we can talk about that later. But if I get my
Yeah.
9 hours of sleep a night, that's my badge of honor. Like that is what I'm aiming for every single night. And everything else has to fall into place around that.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I know there's a foundational aspect to this, just to create better sleep and ultimately weight loss and better health. But many people don't realize that good sleep really does change lives, and it really does
Mhm.
optimize health and helps with weight loss and
Yeah,
maintaining that weight loss and building muscle even, right?
100%.
And
Yeah.
keeping you not hungry all the time. So, what would you say would be like the first thing people should do
Yeah. So
to
you're
sleep better?
absolutely right. If you Oh, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, to what would be the first thing you would recommend somebody do if they're really sleeping lousy right now?
Yeah.
They have insomnia.
Sure. So the first thing to do, as simple as it sounds, but it will make a huge impact, is to start by prioritizing sleep. So the
Mm-hmm.
biggest problem that I see in individuals that I work with and individuals that I speak to is that sleep is left as this kind of last resort thing, right? Like after I do all the things I have to do throughout the day, my work obligations, family obligations, and then I have to, have some me time and I'm going to push my bedtime back because I want to binge watch my favorite show. And then whatever's left, okay, we'll leave that to sleep.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really difficult to sleep well that way because I try to get people to understand that sleep is actually a 24-hour process, right? We just sleep at night, but your circadian rhythm, that internal clock, and the other processes that govern sleep work 24 hours a day. So if you're waiting until the end of the day to give sleep whatever's left, you're probably not going to be very successful at sleeping the way that you want to. So it's really starting by prioritizing sleep, setting up your day and your night for better sleep. And once people make that mindset shift to say, okay, this sleep time is going to be protected. It's my sacred time. I'm going to prioritize that. It actually ends up making the biggest difference.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something to put on the radar to just prioritize it. And again, because of what you and Lori have just mentioned about how much it affects your health, specifically around our favorite topic of weight loss, what does it actually do when you have a bad night's sleep to your body when it comes to weight loss and weight management?
Yeah, so sleep plays such a huge role in maintaining healthy weight, losing weight, building muscle. When people think about weight loss and achieving their weight goals, it really should be nutrition, physical activity, and sleep. Like those are the three pillars, and sleep is really right up there. And that's because when you don't get a sufficient amount of sleep or sufficient sleep quality, the hormone that causes you to be hungry, ghrelin, is actually released in higher quantities. And the hormone that causes you to be full, leptin, is released in lower quantities. So you're actually hungrier when you're not sleeping well. You're also less likely to make healthy food choices. So if you think about a time when you've stayed up late or pulled an all-nighter, you're definitely more likely to reach for the Doritos or something sweet because the decision making process is hindered when you're sleep deprived. You actually revert more to a primitive state and you want that instant gratification. And so it is much easier to make poorer choices. You're also less likely to move and be active, right? Like when you're tired and your energy is depleted, you're much less likely to go to the gym. even if you do, some people are like, well, I'll still go if I'm tired. Your NEAT, I'm sure your audience knows the non-exercise activity thermogenesis also decreases. Things just like walking, standing, blinking, like all the little things that really make up calorie burn decreases when you're not asleep because your body's trying to conserve that energy. Growth hormone is released at night during deep sleep, and the proteins that are needed to build muscle are released in higher quantities. So you're really, really hindering and limiting that process when you're not focusing on good sleep.
And also brain health, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's what's called a glymphatic system that runs overnight, and that's where there's an increase of cerebrospinal fluid that washes away toxins over your brain that accumulated during the day overnight. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not allowing your body the sufficient amount of time to do that. And there are some studies that suggest an increased risk of dementia states like Alzheimer's and other things in chronically underslept individuals.
That's incredible. Just sleep. You would never know.
Mhm.
So many people want 5 more minutes. They hit the alarm button, the snooze button. And what does that do when you do that?
Yeah, I always say just get up. It's so tempting to hit the snooze button because you
Yeah,
feel
right.
like you're doing something about with getting that time. But even if you fall back asleep, the sleep quality is going to be very poor. So you're not going to get quality sleep for that additional amount of time. You're more likely to have what we call sleep inertia, which is that groggy, disoriented feeling you get when you're woken up from a deeper stage of sleep. Uh, and you're more likely to have that if you just get up when your alarm first rings. You're also more likely to sleep through your alarm. You're more likely to throw off your circadian rhythm. So while it's tempting, honestly, it just leads to poor quality broken sleep. So it's better to, when your alarm goes off, just get up. For some people, I'm like, put your phone out of reach so that you would literally have to get up out of your bed to hit snooze and create a barrier there, and just go ahead and get your day started.
So I'm
Right.
glad that you brought that up because I'm really curious what you quantify a good sleep or qualify a good sleep. You mentioned that you get 9 hours in, but there's more to the story than just that, correct?
That's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about good sleep, we think about sleep quantity, which is the number of hours of sleep, and then sleep quality, which is, we call it sleep efficiency. So how much time you're spending in bed actually sleeping, how much time is in deep sleep, and how much of that sleep is restorative without, middle of the night wakings, early morning wakings. Starting with quantity, though, I like to mention my 9 hours because everyone has heard that 7 to 8 hour rule, right? You should get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And that is true on average. However, it is an average. And so some people will need a little less. A lot of people will need more. So if I get 7 hours of sleep, I'm still tired. I'm not functioning optimally. That is not the optimal amount that I need. So I do think it's important for individuals to know what your sleep need is and then aim to get that each night. And then sleep quality. So things that affect your ability to get into deeper stages of sleep, things that cause you to wake up multiple times and stay up multiple times throughout the middle of the night, waking up much earlier than intended. All of those things impact how restorative your sleep is, and then thus, the downstream effects of insufficient quality sleep.
Then can you give us the lowdown on the cell phone technology?
Yes, absolutely. So
Break
I
some
want
hearts, Doc.
Yeah, so I start by saying light is the strongest factor that
Hmm.
influences your circadian rhythm in a way that causes you to be alert, right? Light is the strongest factor. So when you think about that, what that breaks down to is in the morning, you want light, right? Because we want to be
Right.
alert. So it's important to have light, ideally natural light exposure first thing in the morning within an hour of awakening to reinforce your circadian rhythm and cause you to feel alert. Conversely, at night, as we near bedtime, it's important to have limited light exposure because, again, we don't want those alerting factors being sent. Light also stops your melatonin from being released, so it can make it more difficult to fall asleep. Now, light is made up of different wavelengths, and the blue wavelength of light in particular has the strongest effect on your circadian rhythm and on your melatonin release. So, the blue wavelength of light will most strongly inhibit your melatonin release. What is rich in blue light? Your cell phone, your computer, your tablet, all of those electronics are rich in that blue light. So if you are exposing yourself to those things, especially close to bedtime, it can absolutely delay your melatonin release. Some studies have shown up to 90 minutes, making it more
Wow.
difficult to fall asleep and more difficult to get into the deeper stages of sleep.
So I'm just so blown away because I'm a mess. Like when it comes to this.
A sleepy mess.
Yeah, first off, let me try to backtrack. I'm gonna get into the phones. Let me give you a two-part question. What when you say you get 9 hours, what is that like between what time and what time, and what time are you putting your phone down specifically if you're going to bed? What I'm calculating in my head is probably 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that's a great question. So my bedtime is 10 and I wake up at 7. I limit actually put away all electronics an hour before my bedtime. So I start my bedtime routine at 9. And this is something I suggest that everyone have a dedicated time to just wind down from the day. We're so busy, our brains are firing on all cylinders. We're, running through different tasks and to-do lists. Our brains need that wind down time and also that time away from light. Uh, Another key thing to think about is, yes, electronic cell phones are rich in blue light, but even our overhead lights, the normal room lighting that we exist in, also emits blue light and is light in general. So it's also important to dim the lights or use table side lamps so that you're limiting the exposure to just light in general. So around 9 for me, lights dim. I turn as many lights off as possible that I don't need. Cell phone is down, television is off. I play some soft music. I do my skincare routine. I read a book. Like I have a whole thing that helps me to wind down. By 10, I'm asleep, and then I'm up at 7.
Oh, that's great. That's excellent. Yeah. Good role model.
I have to practice what I preach. That's what I
I
tell
know.
people. The good
That's
thing is I've been through insomnia, so I can relate to that struggle. I'm not someone who's just learned about it. I help you. Like it was my struggle, and it was one of the biggest struggles of my life, if I'm being honest.
yeah, it is.
And
It is
then
just awful.
it's awful. It affects everything. And then now I'm like, of course I'm not perfect. There are times that I consciously make the decision on a Saturday night to stay up later or whatever.
Mhm.
But for the most part, I'm modeling the behaviors that I teach other people about because it's so important. And I want people to understand that it is doable. It takes some sacrifice, but to me, good sleep is worth the sacrifice. It makes me such a better person. So I definitely try hard to practice what I preach.
So, what are your thoughts about diet and exercise on sleep quality?
Mm. They all go hand in hand. So what you eat definitely affects your sleep. How you sleep affects your digestive system and your workout regimen. It all really works in tandem. So it is important to have good nutrition. Things that help promote good quality sleep are foods that are rich in magnesium. There are certain vitamin and mineral deficiencies that can impact your sleep. So like iron deficiency is a very common one. So it's important that you are eating iron-rich foods. Again, magnesium is one. Vitamin D is something we're starting to find out in research can really have an impact on sleep. And it is an important modulator for a lot of the neurotransmitters that impact sleep. So it's important that you're getting the adequate nutrition. Exercise 100% promotes deeper quality sleep. We see that, throughout all of the research. So it's very important to engage in some physical activity, ideally an hour a day, to promote better quality sleep at night.
So one of the things that I know is common, at least discussed amongst the people like myself who probably don't get enough sleep during the week. They're like, "Oh, I'll just catch up on the weekends." Is that a thing or not?
Yeah, no. So the reason, okay, so it is a thing in that there's something called sleep debt, which is the amount of sleep that you miss out on throughout the week, right? So I need 9 hours. If I were to sleep 6 hours, I built up 3 hours of sleep debt that night. Your body will try to pay that debt back. So if I've left my own devices and I can sleep as long as I want, on the weekend, my body will say, okay, if you're able to sleep longer, we're going to try to get in those hours of sleep because you missed out on all the sleep. It only does that to a certain extent, though, right? So we're not going to sleep for 30 hours straight because we built up 30 hours of sleep debt. But what I try to get people to understand is the amount of sleep you get each night and the time you spend in each sleep stage has its own functions for that night. So you can never make up those functions that you lost that night. You can get more sleep to try to sleep off some of the debt, but you've already missed the important processes that would have happened that night. And research shows that having this catch-up sleep over the weekend does not decrease your risk of the long-term effects of sleep deprivation. So it's not like you can deprive yourself of sleep and then make up for it and now you're good. You're really missing out on all of those significant processes that should happen each night. Again, a night or two of bad sleep here and there, totally normal. Everyone has it. We're not, we're vulnerable to that. However, it shouldn't be a consistent thing because you can't truly make that up on subsequent days.
Yeah, I've heard that before. It's critical actually. So, so how does age impact our sleep patterns? Because we hear a lot, of people as they age, especially elderly, they can't sleep. They wake up really early, like 4 a.m, 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And what are the challenges they face, and how do we fix this for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So age does have a pretty significant impact on sleep for most individuals. The elderly tend to have what's called an advanced sleep phase, meaning that they get sleepy earlier and they wake up earlier.
Mm.
But getting sleepy earlier doesn't always coincide with what life looks like for them. So they want to have, dinner and hang out with grandkids and things like that. They don't want to be asleep at 6 or 7 p.m., even though naturally that's when their circadian rhythm is promoting sleepiness for them. And then naturally the wake up times tend to be earlier, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, which again, it's not, does not coincide well with what they want their social lives to look like. They're also more likely to have lighter sleep, so they do spend less time in the deeper stages of sleep. And then there are more things that disrupt sleep. So they're more likely to have, multiple bathroom trips in the middle of the night. They're more likely to have medical conditions that impact sleep or medications that have side effects that impact sleep. So it really can be difficult. There are some studies that have shown that potentially there's a decrease in melatonin production as we get older.
That's what I always thought it was. Yeah.
That is definitely part of it. And so while we don't promote this blanket use of melatonin for everybody all the time, there have been studies that have shown a significant benefit in particularly the elderly population. So that can be something that they can utilize to help promote their quality sleep. There are also techniques you can do to delay the sleep phase. So they get sleepy earlier. There are things you can do like light therapy. So again, light is a strong factor influencing their circadian rhythm. So timed light therapy to delay their natural melatonin release, and then using melatonin later in the day to kind of push that back. So there are some things they can do. And then the same kind of sleep hygiene and habits that I would recommend for anyone is going to be very important to help them get the best quality of sleep that they can. Again, getting moving, exercise, physical activity is also very impactful in that population.
And also, just to underscore that, the darkness of the room is important, correct? And the temperature, etc.
Absolutely. Yes. So light is the strongest factor influencing the circadian rhythm. I'm going to sound like a broken clock, but it's so true. And people don't realize that even the light streaming through the windows at night with your eyes closed, your retinas can still detect light. And it's still
true.
it's true.
I am here to say I can see that little tiny little blue light somewhere in the room, right?
Exactly. And so that light is telling your brain, oh, time to be awake and alert, whether you want to or not. So it's important to black that out, use blackout curtains, blackout shades, use a blackout sleep mask. And then as you mentioned, temperature is important. So in research, the optimal temperature is 62 to 68 degrees. And that's because our body temperatures have to decrease 1 to 3 degrees in order to facilitate the transition to sleep and maintenance of sleep. So a rise in body temperature is actually a signal to our brains that it's time to wake up. So you want to keep it on the cooler side. So all of those things factor into sleep quality.
So I want to bring up the two things that I know a lot of the audience probably partakes in, one more than the other, or maybe in equal quantities. Can you tell us how alcohol and coffee affect our sleep?
Yes. So we'll start with coffee because, as you mentioned, that is one of the most widely, or caffeine is one of the most widely consumed substances worldwide. And I am personally a coffee lover. I drink coffee every single day. The issue with caffeine as it pertains to sleep is that caffeine has a long half-life of about 5 hours. And half-life is the amount of time it takes for half of the amount of the substance to be secreted from your system.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, right? So if you were to consume let's say your favorite Starbucks drink that contains 400 milligrams of caffeine at noon, which is, a standard amount, really, generally speaking, then at 200 milligrams is still in your system. And at 10 p.m., 100 milligrams is still in your system. So you may think, oh, I had that coffee a long time ago, but it takes a long time for the caffeine to be secreted or excreted. And depending on how sensitive you are in particular, it can absolutely interfere with your sleep, whether it be your ability to fall asleep or to get into the deeper stages of sleep. It can definitely keep you in lighter stages. So it is important to consume responsibly. And what I tend to recommend is having the lowest effective dose necessary. So if 200 milligrams is enough to get you going and energetic, have 200 instead of 4, and then try to limit that after noon. And then if you're finding that your sleep is still impacted, you may even want to limit that a little bit earlier. The thing with alcohol is that, oftentimes people use alcohol, a glass of wine, as a nightcap, and it seems to make sense because alcohol is a sedative initially, so it will often make you sleepy. The problem is that it's broken down or metabolized in about 3 to 4 hours, and at that point becomes a stimulant. So when you consume alcohol close to bedtime, you tend to have more middle of the night wakings and more early morning wakings. So it is important, again, to try to limit the amount that you're consuming and then try not to have it within 3 to 4 hours of bedtime.
That's good. Really important information, because a lot of people have no idea. They're thinking, I don't have sleep problems. I get to bed, I fall asleep quickly, when I'm drinking, and then they wake up and they're like, oh, why am I waking up all the time, at 2 in the morning or whatever.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah. And
even
it becomes this vicious cycle because they're like, oh, well, let me have 2 glasses of wine so that I can fall asleep. And they don't understand. They're like, no, that is probably causing the sleep issue because yes, it makes you sleepy at first, but then it definitely leads to broken, poor quality sleep.
Well, let me just throw in a monkey wrench to this because I drink coffee late and drink alcohol late, and I have zero issues of sleep.
I've heard that before.
But
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's something else that's going on that's like, obviously I can't measure, like you said, the depth of my sleep cycle and such. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Well, yeah, so it's twofold. So there are people, so I am actually similar in that I believe that I'm a fast metabolizer of caffeine, and you may be too. So there are some people who drink caffeine and it does nothing to. So I will drink a cup of coffee and I don't feel any more awake than I did before I drink it. It's more a ritualistic thing. It makes me relax. But there are some people who metabolize it so quickly that it doesn't take effect. So if you're one of those individuals, you can drink it later and it might not bother you. What I will say is there are some research studies that have shown that individuals who are fast metabolizers who can drink it late and don't have a problem falling asleep, it still can impact the amount of time they spend in deeper sleep stages. So it can lead to lighter sleep and poor quality. And since I learned that, I've definitely started to decrease how late I drink it, but I don't feel this wired feeling. And then something similar with alcohol. So what I try to get people to understand, these are just general rules and recommendations. There are some people, who can sleep in the middle of a storm or a tornado, whether it's bright outside, whether it's
Not
dark,
me.
and they're just sleep. Not me at all, right?
I know.
And I'm like, good for you. I'm jealous. That's excellent. You are blessed. But I would say for the most part, most individuals, that's not the case. And then you also have to be careful because things change over time. So you may be like, oh yeah, at one point I could sleep whenever and do all these things. And so you felt like it was okay. And then as you get older, life stages change, you start to have impacts on your sleep quality and don't connect the fact that now those things might truly be an issue.
Wow, that is such great information. And so I just have one question before we wrap up here. What are your thoughts on napping? And is it going to interfere with quality sleep?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I love a good power nap. It's one of my favorite things to do. Anytime I don't have clinical duties, I absolutely schedule a power nap in my day. But just like the caffeine, you have to nap responsibly. And so what that means is truly having a power nap. So that's a nap that's no longer than 15 to 30 minutes. When you nap longer than that, you get into the deeper stages of sleep and you're more likely to suffer from sleep inertia. So that groggy, disoriented feeling you get when you wake up from a deeper stage. You also want to keep it before 3 p.m. because after that time, you are more likely to steal from your sleep drive such that you're not as sleepy close to your bedtime. And then if you are someone who's suffering from chronic insomnia, so you're like, I can't sleep for the life of me. I can't fall asleep at night. I'm really struggling. You should generally avoid napping altogether until you're on a good track with your sleep schedule. And then you can add in some strategic power naps after that.
Just to follow up, are the people that fall asleep easily during the day, are they sleep deprived in your opinion?
Most
I mean,
likely,
if they fall, like if they're just sitting there, they start falling asleep.
100%. So if you are well rested,
Mhm.
um, put it this way, even at night, if you are falling asleep consistently in less than 8 minutes, you're likely sleep deprived. A normal sleep latency, which is the amount of time it takes to fall asleep, is actually 15 to 20 minutes. So you're falling asleep immediately. That's because your sleep pressure is so high that your body and mind are directing you towards sleep at all times. And if you don't have something counteracting that by causing you to be stimulated, you're going to succumb to that pressure, which means you didn't give yourself enough time to sleep off that pressure overnight. So you are likely, generally speaking, sleep deprived.
Hmm. It's very enlightening.
Fantastic. Yes. Excellent.
Listen, I don't know if I have to call you to take you up on your services because I have
Yeah.
a lot of different things that we could discuss. But I'm not going to bore the audience, and I want them to get an opportunity to actually see how they can take advantage of your services. So if you could just share with us your social media handles, your website, anything that we can do to keep in touch with you and all those good things that you're doing in the sleep world.
Absolutely. So I have a website at thesolutionissleep.com. I do have a blog there, so I do go in more depth with some sleep issues and how to fix them and other things. And then my services are there as well. I try to be entertaining and educating on Instagram at _MD and just give bite-sized pieces of information that are easy to consume, but are, you're able to implement and see results. Um,
Nice.
I'm on LinkedIn at Dr. Holliday-Bell. I get to be a little bit more long form there as well. And then what I'm most excited about is my book coming out called Sleeping on the Job, Proven Strategies to
Oh,
Optimize Workplace Performance and Personal Well-Being Through Better Sleep. And there I really pour out everything, my entire heart. Like these are all the different facets of your life and functioning that are affected by sleep. And this is specifically how to improve that from the moment you open your eyes to the moment you put your head back on the pillow. And that is launching August 5th of 2023.
congratulations. That's
Great.
fantastic. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank
So, Dr. Holliday-Bell, thank you so much for being on our show. It's really been an honor, and you've given me a lot of quality information. So, thank you, and I know our audience too.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. This was a very fun conversation, and I'm happy that you guys brought me on.
No, thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of This Podcast Burns Fat. We're so excited to have you as a listener, and we're hoping that you've really enjoyed the content as well. And if you did, please run over to iTunes and provide a rating and or review. It will go a long way in helping us continuously build our listenership up so that we could provide you with excellent content regarding fat loss, weight management, and just an overall healthy lifestyle. Thanks so much. Have a great night.